Hello students, welcome to part 2 of our video. In this part, we are going to be sorting rational and irrational numbers. To remind you of the qualifications of rational numbers, I'm going to type them here in the center. If it is rational, it will be either an integer, a fraction, a decimal, but if it's a decimal, it has to either repeat or stop, meaning terminate, or lastly, if it's rational, it could be a perfect square root. But it will be one of these 4 qualifications if it is indeed rational. Now let's check out our numbers. Our first number that we're going to look at today is the number -35. Look down through our list of qualifications of rational numbers. Is -35 an integer? Yes. So indeed it is a rational number. What about the square root of 49? It is a square root, so think about your perfect square root clock. Is the square root of 49 a perfect square root? And the answer is yes, because it is equal to the number 7. So it is a rational number. What about 3/9? Is it a rational number? Does it fall into one of these categories? Yes, it is a fraction, so it's a rational real number, and will go on our rational side. What about the square root of 82? Since it's a square root, we want to think about it. Is it a perfect square root and rational, or is it a non-perfect square root and irrational? Does the square root of 82 fall on this clock? The answer is no. It falls between the square root of 81, which is 9, and the square root of 100, which is 10. That makes it a non-perfect square root and an irrational real number. Our next number is the square root of 50. Since it's a square root, think about, is it perfect or not perfect? And you'll know that it is not perfect because it falls between the square root of 49 and the square root of 64. What about pi? The ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. It is irrational because it does not stop and does not repeat. That's why we use the pi symbol, because it's impossible to write out all the digits. Now, it'll be your turn tomorrow in class with your team to decide whether you think each of these is a rational or irrational number. So in your packet, take a moment, pause the video, decide if each one is rational or irrational. You can mark it by putting just an R for rational or an I for irrational. Tomorrow in class, your team will add why you think it's rational or irrational. So you may prepare that ahead of time if you want to, but it is your task to look at them and sort them as rational or irrational to discuss with your team tomorrow. So put an R or an I beside each one. Let's summarize what we've learned. We've learned what real numbers are. Real numbers are all the numbers that can be represented by our world. There are 2 types of real numbers. They are rational and irrational. Rational numbers can be written as a fraction. Irrational numbers cannot. An example of a rational number is an integer. 10 is a rational number. It can be written in a decimal that repeats, 10.00000. An example of an irrational number is a non-perfect square root, like the square root of 102. See you tomorrow in class.